The following program contains graphic displays of courage. If you suffer from weak knees, this show might not be right for you. Check with your orthopedic specialist.
Proclaiming the truth in the highways and byways of the world. Fighting for justice in the dark alleys of politics. Raising the voice of resistance to a fevered pitch. And he knows where to find the best and worst jail food in America. Randall Terry.
I still have a dream.
I had a dream too, Dr. King. It was that we would throw Obama out of office. Instead, the nightmare came true. 4 more years. God forgive us. All right, welcome to the Voice of Resistance, friends. We're going to play segments of Dr. King's speech, I Have a Dream, because after all, it is the day that we honor him as a fallen American hero. I will talk to you about what Obama's second term will mean for us, and a little bit about tomorrow, which is the 40th anniversary of Roe versus Wade. Don't go away. A quick word of wisdom from Granny Jihad.
Children, when we learn about cleverness, we remember the Apostle Muhammad. And now in America, to become powerful, we must remember Muhammad's example and be clever. Okay? So, think of Representative Ellison up in Minnesota. He's a Muslim man, you know. And he's very nice to everybody. And he also supports Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. What a good man. He knows how to be quiet about those important things, just like Muhammad.
Welcome, friend, to the Voice of Resistance. I'm Randall Terry. This is Martin Luther King Day, and we are going to play excerpts in the next 3 segments from his most famous speech, I Have a Dream. And you will see why he inspired so many thousands of Americans of every race and every creed to take to the streets and demand equal rights for all Americans, to which they were and are entitled under God. Not to mention under our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution. But first, it is a day to grieve. While I am very thankful for the peaceful transition of power and the fact that we do not have revolutions and coups d'etats to change those in power, it is still a day to grieve because President Obama formally begins his second term in office. When you consider the evils that this man has done in his first term, the flagrant promotion of the murder of unborn babies, the promotion of homosexual marriage, which the scriptures teach is an abomination. These grave ethical sins, not to mention the somewhat smaller sins of enslaving our children to debt, of promoting socialism and Marxism, these sins are crying out to God. And it's a part of our national sins for many years. But this president, Barack Hussein Obama, is the most flagrant, strident, and brazen man to hold the White House and to defy God's laws. The fact that we re-elected him is not only horrifying, but it opens the way for the judgment of heaven. God is not mocked. What we sow, we will reap. And the fact that he is promoting these grave evils with such callous disregard for God's law and for the fruit that this wickedness will bear should make us all grieve. Grieve for our children, for our grandchildren, grieve for the babies whose lives have been lost and will continue to be lost under Obama's unrighteous, unholy reign. Crowning our messianic monarch, God forgive us. All right, I'm going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to play clips of Martin Luther King's speech, I Have a Dream.
Randall and I discovered a big hole in Arizona. Randall wanted to call it a big ditch, hole. Darn, I can't remember.
Friend, you need to get this book. We Won't Get Fooled Again. Listen to this. I came to the conclusion that most folks were left over from the Reagan era who were no longer warriors, but are now either too old or unhealthy and had compromised and become comfortable with the Republican establishment. They turned these organizations pretty much into direct mail fundraising fronts and were making tons of money and living the good life in beautiful mansions. The conservative movement had transformed itself from a very dynamic, principled organization in the Reagan years to a bunch of compromising, useless, and ineffective money-making machines. I'm reading to you from the new blockbuster book, We Won't Get Fooled Again, that names names, shows organizations, shows how they say that they're Christian, but they betray Christ, they betray biblical principles in the public square, and we are funding them. Go to the website, call us on the phone, and order it today. I'll send it to you for free if you want. God bless you. Friend, you need to get this book. We Won't Get Fooled Again. Listen to this. I came to the conclusion that most folks were left over from the Reagan era who were no longer warriors, but are now either too old or unhealthy and had compromised and become comfortable with the Republican establishment. They turned these organizations pretty much into direct mail fundraising fronts and were making tons of money and living the good life in beautiful mansions. The conservative movement had transformed itself from a very dynamic, principled organization in the Reagan years to a bunch of compromising, useless, and ineffective money-making machines. I'm reading to you from the new blockbuster book, We Won't Get Fooled Again, that names names, shows organizations, shows how they say that they're Christian, but they betray Christ, they betray biblical principles in the public square, and we are funding them. Go to the website, call us on the phone, and order it today. I'll send it to you for free if you want. God bless you.
Dr. Love? Well, of course we're talking about Randall Terry. He's the only one around here who knows about love. Come on now.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Voice of Resistance. I give to you for your viewing pleasure and for your inspiration and for the sake of history, Dr. King's speech, I Have a Dream.
We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summit of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until that is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. Those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But that is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protests to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny.
We'll be right back with more of Dr. King's I Have a Dream.
People, why do the Jews and Christians have to tell such lies and cause such mischief? If only they would turn to Muhammad, they would know peace.
Friend, you need to get this book. We Won't Get Fooled Again. Listen to this. I came to the conclusion that most folks were left over from the Reagan era who were no longer warriors, but are now either too old or unhealthy and had compromised and become comfortable with the Republican establishment. They turned these organizations pretty much into direct mail fundraising fronts and were making tons of money and living the good life in beautiful mansions. The conservative movement had transformed itself from a very dynamic, principled organization in the Reagan years to a bunch of compromising, useless, and ineffective money-making machines. I'm reading to you from the new blockbuster book, We Won't Get Fooled Again, that names names, shows organizations, shows how they say that they're Christian, but they betray Christ, they betray biblical principles in the public square, and we are funding them. Go to the website, call us on the phone, and order it today. I'll send it to you for free if you want. God bless you.
Socialism is the philosophy of failure, the creed of ignorance, and the gospel of envy. Sir Winston Churchill.
Welcome back to the show. We are honoring Dr. King by playing excerpts of his speech, I Have a Dream. I hope that you enjoy it.
And they have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. And as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the cities. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied As long as our children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by signs stating for whites only. We cannot be satisfied as long as a Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and a Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities. Knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friend, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Isn't that awesome? By the way, in case you didn't know this, Dr. King was in a long line of speakers and was supposed to only speak for a few minutes, but he spoke for almost 17 minutes and stole the day. I'll be right back with another segment of Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech.
O Lord, thou God of vengeance, shine forth. Rise up, O judge of the earth. Render to the proud their deserts. O Lord, how long shall the wicked exult?
Friend, you need to get this book. We Won't Get Fooled Again. Listen to this. I came to the conclusion that most folks were left over from the Reagan era who were no longer warriors, but are now either too old or unhealthy and had compromised and become comfortable with the Republican establishment. They turned these organizations pretty much into direct mail fundraising fronts and were making tons of money and living the good life in beautiful mansions. The conservative movement had transformed itself from a very dynamic, principled organization in the Reagan years to a bunch of compromising, useless, and ineffective money-making machines. I'm reading to you from the new blockbuster book, We Won't Get Fooled Again, that names names, shows organizations, shows how they say that they're Christian, but they betray Christ, they betray biblical principles in the public square, and we are funding them. Go to the website, call us on the phone, and order it today. I'll send it to you for free if you want. God bless you. Welcome back to the program, friend. And now, the final segment of I Have a Dream, and then I'm going to make some comments. Enjoy the clip.
I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is a faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning, my country, tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. And so let freedom ring. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom ring. From the mighty mountains of New York, let freedom ring. From the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania, let freedom ring. From the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado, let freedom ring. From the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring. And when this happens, and when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Thank God for the poetic cadence, the courage, and the clarity of Dr. King. Let me point 2 things out. Number 1, when Dr. King was fighting for civil rights, he was pro-life. He could never have conceived that 1/3 of all black babies would be slaughtered by abortion. African Americans only make up about 12% of the population, but they comprise almost 1/3 of all babies killed in America. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, current Supreme Court Justice, did an interview with the New York Times in which she said that they hoped that when Roe versus Wade came and everyone could kill their baby, that it would help decrease the rabble, the troublemakers, the criminals in our major cities. Read African Americans, all right? It is a eugenics movement to kill young babies before they grow up to become criminals. And number two, the sacrifices that these souls in the civil rights movement endured is beyond most of our comprehension. We have watched the steady decay of this country over the last 40 years. And tomorrow, January 22nd, marks the anniversary, the 40th anniversary of Roe versus Wade, that unleashed the brutal slaughter of millions of babies. If we are going to restore this republic and bring an end to the killing, we are going to have to employ similar tactics as those used by the civil rights movement, similar rhetoric, and without question, courage. Only then will we prevail. I look forward to talking to you tomorrow, a special broadcast on Roe versus Wade.